When I started my commercial nuclear power days back in 1991, I never thought nuclear power would be a growth industry. But people are clamoring for power and they have to have it. And nuclear power is one of the best ways to get you there because it's a green source of power. And in Michigan, in Palisades, where they shut down a single unit plant up there a few years ago, they're trying to restart the unit. So my friend, Adam Eastridge, who's the ops director there, and the communication director, Nick Culp, joined me on this episode to talk about not only the people aspects and creating that culture to restart that plant, but including the community and keeping them up to speed on what's going on at Palisades. And there's a special section about the SMRs that are going on there too. So please take a listen to my friends Adam Eastridge and my new friend Nick Culp.
What brought me up here to a decommissioned plant that was at the time 18 months away from restart comes down to only one plant is going to do this for the first time, right? So when you think about it, the challenges that it presents and also the opportunities.
Yeah.
You come to a plant that is in the midst of decommissioning. Staffing levels for a decommissioning plant are much lower than that for an operating plant. So you really have an opportunity to build your own culture, not just your functional area, but the site as a whole. And been doing this for, this year will mark my second decade in commercial nuclear power. And I was going to pass up an opportunity to be a part of this history-making endeavor.
That's an excellent answer. I got to spend some time last week with a lot of your first-level leaders. I'll welcome Nick to the show. Hey, Nick. He just put it on mute.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me. And sorry for the... Yeah, sorry for the delay there. I was having a little Zoom issue.
Oh, I got you. We thought you just wandered off. No. Great. I'm glad you can join us. Adam was just talking about why leave a comfortable operating plant to come to Palisades, and it's first of a kind. And we did hear that from many of the leaders last week. I got to spend some time with some leaders at Palisades, and they all talked about opportunity. And you're creating a culture. A lot of them talked about creating that culture, and it's attractive to them, which is interesting. Now, Nick, you're the communications lead. Is that accurate?
Yes, I'm the senior manager of government affairs and communications, and I've been here at Palisades since 2015. Came in under under the prior owner and local to the area, both my wife and I, and went through a number of announcements and business transitions. To see it come full circle, it just feels like dumb luck to have been here. But like Adam was saying, this is an incredible thing, not only for our industry, but to localize it for Michigan and Southwest Michigan in particular. Eyes of the world are focused on us, and it's a really positive thing. And the culture here and the attitudes of the workers and contractors is just very energizing and exciting.
Yeah, I really got that feeling. It was funny. One of the things that folks brought up was that it was almost like a family feeling. They had gone, when the decommissioning started, of course, a lot of them spread to the four winds. Mm-hmm. And now they're coming back because they missed that feeling. And a lot of them gave up comfortable positions, potential retirement. It's really quite inspiring to hear their stories. Adam, do you want to give a little bit more context into your decision? What is it like working at Palisades every day?
I tell you, it's unique in a lot of ways. It's rare in this day and age, especially our industry, that you can have a site of normal ops, the site staffing level right around 600. But when you factor in all the supplemental workers that we have to support our restart project, you're up in the 12 to 1,300 person. So much more of a buildup than you would see at a typical refueling outage. But that many people united for a common purpose, right? It's like I said, it's rare to have that level of alignment across an organization of this size. So you're able to leverage that, I'll say that collective, that organizational momentum to really drive positive change. It is, as we're ramping up our staffing, getting folks through initial training, through qualifications. I have more people in initial training here for a single unit site than I ever had at a dual unit site in initial program. So many of our associates are new to commercial nuclear, just that wonder and awe at what we do is nice. You don't have, we'll say, the grizzled industry veterans that you see predominantly staffing most of our organizations at an operating facility. So seeing the new generation coming in to these roles is a refreshing change of pace.
Yeah. Nick, why don't you talk a little bit about the numbers if you have them off the top of your head now? How many folks are you hiring? How many have been in the nuclear industry, and what percentage is new to nuclear?
Yeah, I think Adam just summarized it really nicely, where when we shut down, we went from a full staffing complement around 600 workers down to about 220. And so when this was kicking off in the beginning, we knew what we didn't know. What we did know was that staffing was going to be critical in getting the right people into role. What we didn't know at the time was what was the interest level going to be, whether it was a veteran Palisades worker returning back to the site, or, to Adam's point, hiring for the future. It's fantastic, the mix that we got. I would say probably about 2/3 of our organization will roughly be former Palisades or industry veteran. And then for the remaining third, we've got a lot of first time new to nuclear. We're pulling from the U.S. Nuclear Naval Program. We're working with local colleges and universities. We're really pushing on the trades. And so part of this message is there is a pipeline of career opportunities available because of this. And I think this is true not only of nuclear, but a lot of industries right now. You're seeing there's a little bit of aging happening. And to prepare for the future,
it's a lot happening for me.
It's a lot.
Go ahead.
It's a lot happening, but certainly in nuclear power, by generation in general. And then a lot of other industries are seeing this happening about attracting talented young hires to come in. And so we've got a really good mix now of people who know this plant, have been here for decades, people like Adam who have been outstanding elsewhere in the industry, who've been attracted here and are lending their experience and expertise, and then bringing in new people. So there's this turnover over time, because we're not talking about a 5-year restart. This is a plant that's going to run for decades to come.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. One of the first level leaders I talked to, Ryan Smothers, said, we're not starting up the plant. We're not working to start up the plant. We're working to have the plant run, which I think is a great attitude. It's not just because if you think about a lot of projects, or every project has a start and an end date. It sounds like this does. It's not really an end date. It's a new beginning date.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's reflected in our project schedule. We've been able to do not only the work that you would do during a traditional refueling and maintenance outage, but we've been able to add scope, those nice to do things that you typically wouldn't be able to do when you're offline for only 30 days. And I know our folks, they're focused right now on getting the plant into a condition where it can run safely and reliably and get restarted. But it's also thinking about the long term, the next refueling outage, the refueling outage after that. So a lot of planning goes into it. And so far, everything's going really well.
And I was talking, or got the sense for Holtec is new to the operations of plants and restart and all that. I think we're all new to that. What have you, Adam, experienced in terms of, because you're really trying to help them understand what it's going to take to operate the plant, which they might not have that background. How do you help that along when you show up to work?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, Bill. And I'll tell you, it really comes down to explaining the why. Right. My selection was a strategic decision. It made sense to pull in an industry veteran in operations leadership to stand up this new organization, right? Starts with recognizing you have a gap to fill and then identifying quality qualified candidates to fill them. Part of my role here when I explain here is a need, not just for our department, but the site, but here's the why. Here's why this matters. So you think about operations staffing, right? It's not about having the minimum number of required operators to satisfy our tech spec emergency plan requirements. It's about establishing a pipeline, right? Because you have to constantly have that feeder.
Yeah.
If you have leaders in the organization that have an operations background, it makes them more effective in their roles in other functional areas because they understand priorities, they understand what it takes to keep these plants running efficiently and effectively. And I will say that corporate Holtec is very much invested in learning what it takes to not just start up a nuclear power plant, but to keep one running in operation in excellent condition.
And either one of you can chime in on this one, but what you described is a multifaceted problem with many layers. So getting the right people, getting them the support they need as they're learning, understanding the organizational push and pulls, that must be overwhelming sometimes to both of you, really.
If you looked at it from a standpoint of it was one person's sole responsibility, it absolutely would be overwhelming. That's why we have a very effective senior leadership team, which I make part of that team to share the load, so to speak. It's that collective strength that really builds the strongest team. It's more than the contributions of any one contributor. So that's how we handle these, we'll say, tough, multifaceted problems, is identifying who are the right folks to pull into the room to come up with the proposed solutions and endorsing it at the leadership level, senior leadership level, and then executing.
Yeah. And to you, Nick, along those lines, you must see a lot of difference from day one when you first came here, or even before when they were decommissioning. What's your experience around that?
Yeah, and I would just add to what Adam was saying about the Holtec workforce that's here. We've been buoyed in this process by a number of industry partners that are have been working at Palisades for a very long time. We have 15 skilled trades signed on to this project, which is just another multiplier for the jobs and economic benefit that this is bringing to the region. We also have longtime vendors and suppliers and contractors who are here on site who've done the Palisades outages in the past. And so we're leaning heavily on those partners as well to make this happen. So it's not only just about the quality of our team, which is there, but it's having that outside support and seeing the industry really lean into this moment. With Palisades, there's a couple other plants that are now in the mix being discussed for restart. So it's really exciting to see people rally around this. And of course, we're working with organizations like the Institute of Nuclear Power Operations. We're working through our association partner, NEI, and everyone's really been all in to provide the support. That is one thing that we are not short of, is outside expertise that's willing to step up and help us where we need it.
That's great. Yeah. And talked a little bit about the kind of folks you're bringing into the organization, Adam. How are you overseeing that process, initial license and getting people up to speed, new to nuclear? What are you doing during your week to make sure that process is happening at the right level that's going to get you those quality folks at the end of that pipeline?
Yeah, really, it comes down to excellence and oversight. I have a staff that rolls up under me. I have an assistant operations manager of training, and his whole role and responsibility now is to ensure quality of the instruction that's being provided to just our initial training classes, but our requalification training classes. And I have frequent touch points. I'm down in training multiple times a week, interfacing with these students in both classroom and the simulator. And part of that interaction is understanding what their challenges are, what their concerns are, and seeking to understand. And the same thing applies to my other system operations managers that are supporting the shift, staffing, and execution, as well as our support functions with project support, order management support. So it really comes down to establishing that framework, the vision, and what their collective roles and responsibilities are, and ensuring quality in everything that we do, training just being one subcomponent of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Nick, I know you interface with the folks you listed, NRC, and I'm sure you're turning over a lot of rocks. You're finding things that increase the scope. You got to fix them. So that level of trust with the external stakeholders must be pretty high. How do you maintain that trust with them and keep them aligned and all that good stuff?
Sure. So the regulatory piece is not in my scope, but we do a lot of interfacing with our federal, state, and local partners. And it's a practice that we established when the plant was operating and when we announced the shutdown. It's better to be engaged with folks, be upfront with them where we are in the process. And most people are they want to understand more. Right. So stakeholder engagement, we don't take our foot off the pedal with that. Even in good times, when things are going smoothly, we're always still engaged, keeping people informed of what we're doing and always willing to answer questions. We do public open houses. We do public meetings. We'll speak to civic organizations. We go to community events. And it's really just about being out there, not putting your head down. But the guys at the plant, they can keep their head down because they got to stay focused on the work. But the company itself has to be out there and receptive to people.
No, that's great. Yeah, I heard about, and Nick, this is for you. I heard about the SMR announcement. So that's pretty exciting too. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we had a pretty big deal a couple of weeks ago here at the site. We had distinguished guests from Hyundai Engineering make the trip out from Korea, along with our executive leadership, to talk about an expanded partnership to build small modular reactors here in the United States. For Holtec, our SMR 300, we're planning to land the first two here at Palisades, adjacent to the current plant after the restart happens. So really exciting news for the community. I know we're trying to do one major thing here and then hey, wait till you see part two. It's pretty exciting.
Right. Yeah, let's put on this wedding plus. Let's do some anniversaries and retirements.
Exactly. But we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And there is a sequencing to these things. The SMR work really will begin in earnest after the restart takes place. It's a separate team, separate funding. So they are separate, even though they're at the same site. And we'll be leveraging the expertise of now having an operating plant when we bring those two units online.
Yeah, I heard the date is October. I got a chance to talk to Lori Brady at NEI, and she talked a lot about an ecosystem in the community, tech schools, the universities that support nuclear plants. How is that becoming real for you? You're in a pretty rural area of Michigan there. How do you attract people? How do you get them to want to work at Palisades?
I'll start on the community side, and then Adam actually probably could speak more to the nuts and bolts. Yeah, here in Southwest Michigan, we have Covert Public Schools. We have the Van Buren Intermediate School District, which does career training for high school students. And then we've got Lake Michigan College, which actually has a nuclear curriculum. And we're working with all of those to say to local students, look, you don't have to take on and incur 6 figures of college debt and leave our community to find a good job to pay that off. You can get a good education here. And this is a plant that's going to offer 20-year careers. So we're trying to get that message out there and work with those organizations to build that pipeline and that training program. But we really want to hire locally as much as we can. That's a part of this as well.
Yeah. And there are a lot of attractive things. I met some folks last week that had farms, horses, and all kinds of stuff. And it wasn't too far from the plant. So what do you think, Adam, about that?
I would agree with everything that Nick said. We strive for a very diverse hiring class, right? You take folks out of the commercial or the Navy nuclear program, it instills a lot of the fundamental knowledge skills and abilities needed to successfully operate a commercial nuclear power plant. There's no substitute for that education, those life experiences. But at the same time, we want diversity in thought. We want people with other educational, personal backgrounds, life experiences. I have, like I said, I've been doing this this is my 20th year. I've never had the number of candidates apply for our open positions in operations in any other plant that I've worked at. It actually makes this job, the selection process, much more difficult because you have such a high caliber of competent, qualified folks that want to work here. And we have been able to retain a lot of folks with local ties to the areas. To me, it's part of being in a position to pay back to the investment that the community is making on us to, in turn, employ folks with the ties to the area.
Yeah. One of the things that popped in my head is, as a senior leader, and Nick, you can even pipe in on this, it's a tough job to come in every day, especially when people are talking about dates. Oh, that might be a challenge, and the things you find might be frustrating for your people. How do you keep them focused on, Nick was saying earlier, with their heads down working and not be too concerned about whether you're on time? We'll worry about that. How are you filtering that to your folks, Adam?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really, it just comes down to, I'll say, one of my leadership pillars is come to me with problems and solutions. So we don't dwell on the discussion around the problem. And that leads to, if you're not solution oriented, focus on what you're going to do about it, it just creates unnecessary churn and turmoil in the organization. So aligning that, yes, there are going to be challenges, just like there are at any plant, whether you're online working through a refueling outage or a mid-cycle maintenance outage. The problem isn't what defines us. It's how we respond and how we move forward that determines the success of the organization. So that's the way that I conduct myself, and that's the way that I ensure my team is conducting themselves.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that? Nick?
Yeah, I would just say, not that I can really add anything to that. Was very well said, Adam. I would say the only caveat is when we're talking about this in more of a public way, yes, we are tracking as we talk today to be restarted in the fourth quarter of this year. But what's paramount to our team, because it's in their DNA, it's in the training of everyone who works in nuclear power, is Palisades will not start until we are ready to do so safely and reliably, and we meet the NRC's highest standards. Yes, good news. We are on track for that October deadline. We are pushing our team to get there. It is manageable. It's a lot of work, but our team, thanks to our leaders like Adam, we can get there. But at the end of the day, the most important thing will be that this plant's ready to go and meets the NRC standards when we get there. And I personally have confidence that those two will both align, but the safety and reliability will be paramount.
Yeah. Do you want to say something, Adam?
Nick is spot on, Bill. I would just end that conversation point with the fact that our success, the success of Palisades, is not going to be determined by when we come online. We are going to come online. That is an absolute certainty. Our success is going to be measured by the safe and reliable operation once we're online. So the decisions that we make as a company, as an enterprise, are focused on that long-term success.
Yeah,
that's great.
Because Bill, you'll probably already remember this, but when Palisades shut down, as it was scheduled to do back in 2022, this site, and most of the team that was here contributed to this. We had back-to-back record-breaking production runs, and our outages had never been running tighter and more on budget. And we want to continue that legacy of success and setting an industry standard when we get back online. We're not going to limp over the finish line. We're going to be sprinting through it onto the next major challenge.
Yeah, and along those lines, I know everybody or some folks on site might be focused on a date that you're coming online, but I suspect you probably have some milestones in there that you can celebrate and not just look at it as, okay, we have 1,000 things to do. We got 20 of them done. How are you set up that way to reinforce the good things as you go?
Well, go ahead, Adam.
No, I think you're heading the same way I was going to, so I'll let you start.
All right, we'll see. All right, you fact check there. One of the hard things that we did from a communication standpoint with the senior leadership team early on was just exactly that. Like, we have a road to go, and we've got thousands of work orders that need to be completed, and it's a fairly complex thing to execute. So we boiled it down to about 40 milestones that we're tracking as an infographic, but there's a lot more behind those milestones than just 40 checkpoints. So, for example, some of the things that we've gone through, Adam talked about the training program coming back. That was a huge milestone for the site. And the recertification of those operators, the 2 initial operator classes that we have going right now was a major milestone. The inspection activities that we have underway, we did a cleaning of our primary coolant system. So each of those things we check off and celebrate as an organization. And it's, when you look back, sometimes it seems like the work of the week is a lot to do, but when you look back to see everything we've already accomplished up to now, when this had never been done before, and to think where we were 2 years ago versus today, and that really reinvigorates folks and gives the second wind.
Adam?
I think went exactly where I was going to go. So it's a challenge, right? Because at a leadership level, you're focused on procedurally driven milestones, right? But your workers in the field, our associates that are actually making this project successful, they need to see something more tangible. So our communications team developed this roadmap graphic, and we update it as we achieve these milestones, because on the one hand, the project's not over until the plant's put back together or safely online. But you can't lose sight of all the work and the individual milestones that stack up to make that possible.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. It kind of reminds me, I have a loved one that struggles with a mental illness. One of the things I did with him is remind him how far he's come in life. And that really helps him to put things in perspective. Because one of the things he struggled with is, I haven't done this, I haven't done that. Yeah, but look, 6 months ago, you had all these other challenges that you've overcome. So yeah, I think that's a great way to look at your Palisades.
It also gives us an excellent opportunity to express our gratitude for the dedications, hard work, and efforts that have gotten us to this point.
Yeah. When you think about that, Adam, is there any story that sticks out to you that just kind of reinforces what you said about dedication and hard work and caring and community and all that?
I think it really boils down to me is the efforts of our incumbent operators, both licensed and non-licensed, that chose to stay at Palisades through decommissioning. The ones that, as soon as they had the opportunity to come back, did to regain their operating licenses. The number of those that are here having to go above and beyond to provide coverage for key projects, dry fuel storage campaign is a prime example, right? We need to unload our spent fuel pool to make room for the next cycles of fuel. That requires a previously licensed senior reactor operator to provide that oversight. And part of that effort, dedication, is coming in nights, weekends on short notice to support that project and see it through to completion. I think that just speaks to the dedication of these folks that I have the pleasure of leading.
Yeah, and I bet that helps you too. No one ever asks a leader how they're doing today, but it sounds like you do that a lot for your people. But that must give you fuel to take on the next challenge, to see all those people stepping up.
And it absolutely does. And it gives me reassurance that we absolutely have the right people here to not just see this project to bring this unit online be a success, but to safely operate in the dedication they're having in training and mentoring our classes of new operators, I have worked with some excellent operations departments, and the folks I have here are right up there.
Yeah.
With the best, if not the best.
It sounds like the whole project and the work you're doing at Palisades is transformative, not only for the area, but for a lot of people's lives at the station that are working.
I would say absolutely, yes, that is accurate.
Have you experienced that too, Nick? Have you seen that transformative nature of what you're doing? I know you're in the middle of it right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is pulling really the best out of people. And Adam, I don't think you could say much more about the internal side of it, but externally, we've really seen the best out of our community and our stakeholders for this. It's become really a rallying point. My background is I worked in the legislative branch for over a decade. And when you look at our national political scene today, not to take it at the macro level, but when you look at it, you're going to be hard pressed to find something that a lot of people can rally around. Right. And so the external side, it's been like a really golden moment for people, whether you're left or right or somewhere in between, to say, we want to get behind this because we support what these guys are doing and we have confidence in the people that they pulled together to do it. So in that sense, from like a more macro public level, it's been very exciting and very positive.
Yeah. Great point. When I started this podcast, I thought a lot of the stories that you're sharing today don't get out because 3 Mile Island happened. Everybody kind of shrunk a little bit. Fukushima, Chernobyl, all those things make it such that people like yourselves, that story doesn't get out there. So I'm glad to be able to provide this opportunity for you folks to bring your story, because it is one that's really coming from a closed plant to reinvigorate not only the plant, but the whole area, and knowing what's on the horizon for nuclear energy. Any thoughts as we wrap things up here that we didn't talk about that you wanted to share about your journey there at Palisades?
I think the only thing I haven't spoken to, Bill, is the level of support in the community that I've personally experienced. Yeah, I've been fortunate my entire career. I've been at plants that were well received by the community. Nobody protesting on access roads or public meetings. But this is the first time that I've seen the level of, we'll say, grassroots support in the broader community and people actively advocating, supporting us to bring the unit back online. It's been refreshing.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to remember this plant wasn't decommissioned because it had technical nuclear safety related concerns. It was purely an economic decision by a previous owner. It just shows that when you have the right framework established to support the continued operation there is a path to bring back previously decommissioned sites. Yeah. And I hope we are the first of many.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Nick?
Yeah, just playing off of what Adam just said about public support. We talk about the things that we can control as a team, the work that we're doing here, and just the impressive job that our team of nuclear professionals is doing. But the things that you can't control, some of the external factors that brought us here today are pretty incredible. And I think when we look back after the restart's complete, it was just a really interesting point in time when this was able to happen. The state of Michigan,
right?
The federal support, the community support was absolutely essential. You can't force this into a community that doesn't want it. And they were not only there and supportive, but as Adam said, they've been actively there, stepping up for this to happen because they recognize how important it is. They see the taxes, they see the jobs, their kids go to school with the kids of parents who work here at the plant. But then you also look at our energy landscape. And right now we're talking about American security. We're talking about having reliability. We're talking about backfilling baseload power when we see so much coal going offline. This sort of was a perfect a number of things coming together that helped make it happen that were external to our control. But fortunately, we had the people in place who could help seize the opportunity to make it happen. And I think it's an excellent story for the United States. We're reasserting ourselves as energy leaders and nuclear leaders once again in the world. And we're really proud to be a part of that story and part of the tip of that spear.
Well, that's a great way to put it. Finally, I'll give you a chance to, let's say I'm a young person thinking about getting out of high school, maybe looking at a place like Palisades to come work. What would you tell them?
Yeah, it's funny, Bill. I have that conversation quite a bit with folks that were area folks that reach out to me through social media, like LinkedIn. And so it's one of the few industries, few career paths that you can aspire to be a senior level leader without having a 4-year technical degree. It's rare in this day and age that you can set your career trajectory just through hard work, determination, and the way you carry yourself. But that is absolutely the case in commercial nuclear power. So for folks that aspire to greater leadership roles, that don't want to incur the cost of debt associated with a post-secondary education, this is an excellent field to consider.
Great point. Nick, how many folks are you still hiring there at Palisades, Holtec?
I think we're around 560 today. We're going to be pushing up to 600. So we've got more hiring to do. But as we've talked about, this is a long-term project. It's not just about the restart. It's about the plant's long-term operation. So we'll be continuously hiring for a long time to come. Now, I would just say, as a nuclear outsider sitting on the inside, the type of people who work in this industry, it's truly inspiring. And it changes the way you think and accountability you hold yourself to. And so it's a very rewarding environment to work around. The men and women who work at nuclear power plants, and Palisades is certainly no exception there. It's an inspiration to come to work to see what Adam and his folks do.
That's great. And I'm sure you don't just set people up and say, good luck, turn this wrench. And I'm sure you have whole programs around getting people up to speed that might not have any experience when it comes to technical stuff.
Now, I've been here for 10 years and they won't let me touch anything. So they've got standards.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think you probably do some filtering initially, but I bet you now the programs are so much better than they used to be when Adam and I started this commercial journey years ago.
That is true. Collectively, the industry learned their lessons by getting folks like you and me through the programs.
There you go.
So it's much better these days.
I'll give you that final joke there, Adam. I really appreciate your time. I know you folks are so busy. We had to reschedule once, but I appreciate you getting with me. And I hope this will help Palisades as they as they continue that journey to restart.
Thanks so much, Bill. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, thank you guys, and best of luck.
You as well.
Take care.
Holtec has a lot going on up at Palisades, so it's whether it's restarting that unit or starting some SMRs, they have a lot going on. And if you want to join them, feel free to do that. Go to holtec.com and check out the bullshit. There's a lot going on up at Palisades in Michigan, which includes not only the restart, but SMRs. So if you're interested, go to holtec.com and they'll be more than happy to talk to you about a job opportunity or getting more. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on up at Palisades in Michigan. If you're interested in contacting them, go to holtec.com and check out their careers. Maybe you can find a job and help restart that plant. Also, SMRs are getting started. Very exciting times up in Michigan. I hope you'll join those folks, and they're passionate about nuclear energy in the future. Also, I have Ryan Smothers coming up. I had a chance to talk to him. He's one of the supervisors there, chemistry supervisors. So that's coming in the upcoming episodes. But please tell a couple of friends about the show. The show is growing, but we could always use more folks to hear and maybe even be interviewed for the show. Contact me, bill@nuclearleader.com, and we'll talk. Until next time, take care. Remember, split atoms and unite people.